Imagine holding a plain coffee mug that you would never spend more than $5 to buy at a local store. But the moment someone hands it to you as a free gift, you suddenly refuse to sell it for less than $10. This single psychological glitch explains why millions of smart investors watch losing stocks plunge towards zero, holding on tight while refusing to sell simply because the declining asset already belongs to them. If you have ever felt a painful tightening in your stomach at the thought of cutting your losses on a failing trade, a bad business venture, or a useless item, you are experiencing a deeply ingrained human mental error. What most people never realize is that your brain rewires the objective monetary value of any object or asset the exact millisecond you take physical or psychological ownership of it, creating a costly cognitive illusion. Nobel Prize-winning researchers spent decades studying this exact human behavior, proving that our psychological wiring causes us to overvalue our possessions and make irrational financial choices that keep us broke. I break down one critical behavioral psychology concept per video in plain English so you can master your money mind. So hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications to never miss an episode. Back in 1990, legendary behavioral economists Daniel Kahneman, Jack Knetsch, and Richard Thaler conducted a famous experiment at Cornell University that forever changed how we understand financial decision-making. The researchers randomly distributed basic university coffee mugs to half of the students in a classroom, and then set up a real, functioning market where students could trade or sell those mugs freely. Standard economic theory predicted that roughly half the mugs would be traded between students based on personal preference. But when the trading session opened, almost nobody was willing to swap their mug. The students who received the mugs demanded a median price of roughly $7 to sell, while the students who did not own a mug were only willing to pay around $3 for the exact same item. Psychological ownership alone instantly doubled the perceived financial value of a simple piece of ceramic, proving that the human brain inflates worth simply because something is labeled as mine. Psychologists gave this systematic mental error an official name: the Endowment Effect. And once you understand how it operates in your mind, you will spot it happening everywhere in your daily life. Think about the last time you kept a losing stock or a tanking crypto asset that was down 60%, telling yourself that you would sell as soon as you broke even on your initial purchase price. Ask yourself this honest question. If you had cold, hard cash sitting in your bank account today, would you buy that exact same failing investment at its current price right now? If your honest answer is no, then the only reason you are still holding on to that asset is because the endowment effect has trapped your mind in a state of artificial valuation. Before I show you the single most counterintuitive part of this psychological trap, we need to understand the underlying evolutionary mechanism that forces our minds to make this expensive mistake. Behavioral economists proved that the endowment effect is powered by loss aversion, a survival bias where the psychological pain of losing something is twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining. For our early human ancestors, losing a gathered meal or a protective tool meant literal starvation, so the brain evolved to defend current possessions with intense, irrational emotional resistance. When you sell a losing investment at a loss, your brain does not view the transaction as a rational reallocation of capital. It registers the sale as a painful physical loss of personal property. To avoid feeling that sharp pain of regret, your subconscious mind tricks you into holding the bad asset, convincing you that as long as you do not sell, the financial loss is not actually real. Global corporations and billion-dollar tech platforms understand this ancient evolutionary glitch intimately, and they actively design subtle psychological traps to exploit your endowment effect every single day. Consider how subscription streaming services, fitness gyms, and software companies offer you 30-day free trial periods without charging a single dollar upfront for their services. They know that during those 30 days, your brain establishes a deep sense of psychological ownership over the product, making it feel surprisingly painful to cancel when the trial period ends. Automobile dealerships use the exact same psychological tactic when they insist that you take a brand new vehicle home for an extended test drive over the weekend. The moment you park that new car in your driveway and show it to your neighbors, psychological ownership takes root, making it feel like a devastating loss to return the keys on Monday morning. E-commerce giants like Amazon patented one-click purchasing and express delivery options specifically to minimize the time between wanting an item and feeling like you already own it. What you just learned about retail strategy and consumer spending is true, but this exact same mental error explains why smart people stay in terrible jobs and unfulfilling relationships for years. You invest years of effort, personal identity, and energy into a career path or a partnership, and your brain begins to treat that spent time as a physical asset that cannot be abandoned. Stay with me, because what I am about to show you in the next 2 minutes is the exact diagnostic test that will free your money from bad investments forever. To break free from the endowment effect, professional portfolio managers use a powerful mental framework known as the Clean Slate Reset strategy. Every Sunday afternoon, look at every stock, crypto asset, or business venture you currently own and pretend that your entire portfolio was completely liquidated into cash overnight. Look at that imaginary cash sitting on the table and ask yourself, knowing everything I know today, would I rebuy this specific asset at its current market value right now? If the answer is no, sell the asset immediately without hesitation, because holding a bad investment is identical to buying it brand new with fresh cash every single day. When you hold an asset that you would not buy today, you are essentially making an active decision to purchase it at its current price, costing yourself potential gains elsewhere. Professional traders understand that money is completely fungible, meaning that $1 saved by cutting a loss is identical to $1 earned from a winning investment. Yet the human brain treats earned dollars and saved dollars completely differently due to mental accounting, another cognitive bias that works alongside the endowment effect to cloud your judgment. When you separate your money into mental buckets, you lose sight of your total net worth and allow emotion to dictate where your hard-earned capital stays trapped. Realize that the market does not know you exist, nor does it care what price you originally paid for a stock, crypto token, or piece of real estate. The market assigns value based on supply and demand right now, while your brain assigns value based on your personal attachment and historical purchase history. The gap between those two numbers is where financial ruin occurs for individual investors who refuse to detach their personal identity from their investment decisions. Consider the story of a real estate investor who refused to sell a declining commercial property for $500,000 simply because he purchased it for $800,000 years earlier. By holding on to the building for another 5 years while property values continued to fall, he lost an additional $200,000 in maintenance fees and lost market opportunity. Had he applied the Clean Slate Reset, he would have cut his losses immediately and reallocated those funds into growth assets that could have recovered his original capital twice over. This brings us to a fundamental truth about human nature. We care far more about being proven right than we do about making money in the long run. Admitting that an investment was a mistake feels like an attack on your ego, so your brain uses the endowment effect as an emotional shield to protect your self-esteem. But top investors separate their ego from their portfolio by viewing every trade as a probability game rather than a personal statement about their intelligence. To put this into practice today, start by auditing your physical living space and identifying 3 items you no longer use but refuse to throw away or sell. Ask yourself what price you would pay for those exact items at a garage sale today, and notice how much lower that number is than what you think they are worth. Once you recognize this mental distortion in small, everyday physical items, you will begin to recognize it in your stock portfolio, your career choices, and your business decisions. The goal of mastering behavioral psychology is not to become an emotionless robot, but to build awareness around the hidden mental software running inside your head. When you feel that familiar resistance when preparing to cut a loss, pause and name the emotion for what it truly is. Simple, predictable loss aversion at work. By calling out the endowment effect by name in the moment it occurs, you strip away its emotional power and return your mind to a state of rational clarity. Let us pull this entire master framework together so you can permanently protect your wealth and eliminate emotional bias from your financial future starting today. First, remember that your brain naturally overvalues anything you own simply because you own it, creating a dangerous gap between emotional attachment and true market reality. Second, realize that marketers, retailers, and corporations actively exploit this sense of pre-ownership through free trials, test drives, and return policies to force you into spending more. Third, apply the Clean Slate Reset every single week to evaluate your investments objectively, treating every holding as if you were purchasing it fresh with cash today. Fourth, remember that cutting a bad investment is not a failure of intelligence. It is a necessary tactical step toward protecting your capital for better future opportunities. Fifth, share these behavioral insights with people in your circle so you can keep each other accountable when emotional biases threaten to destroy your financial progress. If you want to master your psychological relationship with money and build true financial wisdom, hit the subscribe button right now to join our growing community of rational thinkers. Share this video with one friend or fellow investor who is currently holding on to a bad financial decision, because one clear conversation about this insight could change their life forever.